Do you find it odd that members of the very movement that began by tearing down monuments get so upset when their own monuments get vandalized? It's a strange thing for sure, but that's exactly what's happening across the country. In this video, we're going to take a look at the multiple instances of George Floyd murals across the nation getting defaced, how BLM activists are somehow shocked when it happens, and we're going to find out why support for BLM actually drops every time a new vandalism incident occurs. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you. As always, we are your daily fake news antidote. As each and every day, we provide patriotic analysis to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. How hot is it where you are? With the summer already hitting some record temperatures, let me tell you, it's hot where I am. I'm so glad that I've got an awesome device that's here to keep me personally cool. It's called the Arctic Breeze 3-in-1 Air Cooler, and it's a mini air conditioner unit that's small and compact enough to put right on your desk. It works as a portable air cooler, air purifier, and air humidifier. Plus, it has 3 different wind speeds and USB connectivity, so it can be powered by multiple devices. Now, if you click on the link down below right now, for a limited time, they're offering this little gem at 50% off plus free shipping to boot. That's right, 50% off plus free shipping. So do not wait. It's a limited time offer. Click on that link below or go to easysummercool.com and order your personal portable AC unit today. All right, okay. Let's dive right in here. George Floyd monuments are being defaced across the nation, and what are obviously protests against Black Lives Matter and the destruction that the movement brought to our nation's urban areas and our culture and as a whole over the last year. More and more of these murals and monuments are being destroyed and vandalized. Let's start in the city of Houston, where a large George Floyd memorial was vandalized with a racial epithet splashed across it. Houston was George Floyd's hometown, and the mural has since been restored. In the city of Louisville, Kentucky, a mural depicting both George Floyd and Breonna Taylor was recently vandalized. Paint was smeared across what many were calling a Say Their Names memorial. In Philadelphia, several murals throughout the city were recently defaced with the logo PATRIOT front splashed across with white paint, covering most of the murals. In Lafayette, Indiana, another George Floyd mural was defaced as well. This mural in particular has been vandalized several times, as many of these murals have. In fact, right when BLM activists started putting up these murals and monuments, whatever you want to call them, but right when they started last summer, they immediately ran into problems. You'll definitely want to check out a video I did on a BLM statue that actually got torn down and thrown in a dumpster. It's crazy hilarious. It happened in the city of Bristol, actually in the UK. Vandals tore down a bronze statue of Edward Colston. Colston was a British parliamentarian and philanthropist. In fact, he's long been recognized as one of the most generous benefactors of the city of Bristol. But that didn't matter because Colston was also a man of his time, and he was involved in the slave trade. And just a month or so after the Colston statue was toppled, a new statue got erected in honor of the BLM movement. Just one problem. They didn't get the city's permission to erect the statue, and so in less than literally 24 hours, the city tore down the BLM statue and hauled it away in a dumpster. CNN was livid. They were absolutely livid. They couldn't believe that the city of Bristol would do this. Look at this headline. Edward Colston statue stood for 125 years. The Black Lives Matter statue that replaced it didn't even stand for freaking 25 hours, man. What an injustice, man. And CNN goes on to make the best of it. You know what they said? This is so funny. They said, as it turns out, the statue was actually rather controversial among BLM activists. Can you guess why? Because it was the creation of a white artist. It was the creation of a white sculptor. And for many, they felt that that was unhelpful to the wider Black Lives Matter movement. So it just doesn't get more absurd than that. And so needless to say, in many respects, what happened in Bristol in the UK is rather symbolic of what's been happening to George Floyd and BLM murals and monuments all across this nation. You'll definitely want to check out my video on a Breonna Taylor monument that was defaced of late. Breonna Taylor herself was elevated globally as a symbol of the BLM movement shortly after she was shot and killed by Louisville police who were investigating her apartment as part of a drug bust of their boyfriend. And so the smashing of this sculpted bust of Breonna Taylor was seen as a protest against the BLM movement, and the artist called the vandalism, quote, an act of racist aggression. Now, we've talked about this before in other videos, but there is an obvious question to all these BLM supporters and advocates here. What on earth did you expect? I mean, you would think, given their propensity towards the destroying of monuments, particularly over the last year, given that, you would think that BLM activists might think twice about erecting their own monuments. We have to remember that the BLM riots were inherently iconoclastic, right? That's a cool term. BLM activists were iconoclasts, meaning that they dedicated themselves to smashing and defacing icons or monuments and statues in cities all across the country. You can actually go to Wikipedia and find an article entitled List of Monuments and Memorials Removed During the George Floyd Protests. And there you'll see literally hundreds upon hundreds of statues that have been removed, broken, smashed, and the like. It's pretty sad stuff. And by the way, it's not just slave owners. Even abolitionists got taken down. You may not be aware of the black abolitionists. I kid you not. The black abolitionist activist Frederick Douglass in Rochester, New York. His statue was torn down, defaced, and disposed of in a gorge. I think actually 1 year ago today. A statue of Hans Christian Heg, a devout abolitionist, was torn down in Madison, Wisconsin. Even the statue of Abraham Lincoln, the one who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, for heaven's sakes. His statue in Boston is known as the Emancipation Memorial. That was removed. And that's because this, of course, ultimately has nothing to do with iconoclasm per se. It has nothing ultimately to do with monuments or murals, as you know, because right after they tore down the monuments, what did BLM activists start doing? Right? What did these supposed iconoclasts start doing literally immediately? They started putting up their own. They replaced statues with their own statues, monuments with their own monuments. BLM murals and banners began to spring up all over the nation's urban centers, which on the face of it is fine, but given that your own movement was literally born in the act of defacing monuments all across the nation, wouldn't it seem rational that those who disagree with you, frankly, those who are offended by your BLM monuments, does it seem rational that they're going to do to your monuments what you did to theirs? It simply never ceases to amaze me how shocked members of this iconoclastic movement get when their icons are smashed, right? In the midst of tearing down monuments and statues across the country, why on earth are BLM activists shocked to find their own newly erected monuments getting comparably defaced? Why is it that they can vandalize our nation's monuments only to get offended when their monuments are vandalized? Is that not the definition of absurdity? You see, this is the total absurdity of woke leftism. They have no problem whatsoever denying to you and me the very prerogatives they delegate to themselves. They can vandalize and destroy and deface all they want. The moment their own monuments are destroyed and defaced, blah, that's the worst crime in the history of humanity. It's racist. It's racist. The hypocrisy is obvious for all to see. They arrogate to themselves vandalizing privileges that they deny to everyone else. And so, what's the end result of this? What can we expect to continue to happen here? Well, obviously, they're going to continue to get defaced, these murals. But what's important here is that every time these murals and monuments get vandalized, then that gets promoted through the racist narrative peddled by the mainstream Marxist media. However, scholars like Carol Swain of Vanderbilt University have shown, the more the cultural Marxist narrative is pushed by the media, the more Americans tend to resent that narrative and the less they support BLM. And so the more Marxist media pushes this racist narrative, the more support for BLM drops. You'll definitely want to check out a video I uploaded on how support for BLM has dropped actually across the board over the last several months. So, for example, a recent poll shows that only 35% of white Americans approved of BLM, 50% disapproved. Just a few months prior to the poll, 53% of all whites approved of BLM. So support among whites has dropped 20 points, comparable to a drop in support for BLM as a whole. The more BLM activists put up pro-George Floyd memorials, the more they're going to be defaced because of this drop in sentiment towards BLM. The more they're defaced, the more the Marxist media pushes their epidemic of racism narrative. And the more they push that racism narrative, the more people begin resenting BLM. So we can be sure of at least one thing. The resentment against BLM has only just begun. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video. I just uploaded it on what woke leftists do on the 4th of July. You're going to find out in this video. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless. Woke leftists on the 4th of July.